Welcome along to this Rugby Obsession deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're really getting stuck into a fascinating piece from RugbyPass. The headline is, Whisper It, but the Wallabies could outscrum the British and Irish Lions this summer.
Ooh, controversial.
It is, isn't it? It definitely caught my eye. And look, if you enjoy this kind of in-depth rugby chat, make sure you hit subscribe on Rugby Obsession.
Yeah, it's a really interesting article. It basically lays out this whole argument, this scenario where maybe, just maybe, the Wallaby scrum turns from a potential weakness into, well, a weapon against the Lions.
Against the Lions scrum, that's a big call.
It is, and the author builds the case by looking at, the history, some key players who might be involved, and crucially, how the scrums might actually be refereed this time around.
Okay, so let's start with that history then. The article kicks off by reminding us about 2013, the last Lions tour in an onrus.
Yeah, and the scrum was just huge then, wasn't it?
Absolutely dominant for the Lions. They really mention the tough time the Wallaby tight head Ben Alexander had, particularly against Alex Corbisiero.
Mm-hmm. And Romain Poit's refereeing.
Yep.
That was a massive talking point throughout the series.
It set the tone, didn't it, that scrum pressure?
It totally did, and I think the article uses that memory really effectively. It asks, okay, that was then, but could we see the complete opposite this time? Could the Wallabies actually get on top there?
Right. So what are the big what-ifs the article explores for that to happen? It seems like Will Skelton is pretty central to the argument.
Yeah, Skelton looms large. Quite literally. The piece talks about him being this behemoth, potentially over 280 kilos, packing down on the tight head side.
Wow.
But it's not just the weight, it's his history, particularly impacting the Leinster pack when he was there. And remember, 6 of those Leinster forwards are in this Lions squad.
So he knows them inside out, basically.
Yeah.
Their strengths, weaknesses under pressure.
Potentially, yes. He'd understand how certain players react, maybe where the fault lines are when things get tough in the scrum. It's that kind of inside knowledge.
And Joe Schmidt, the Wallabies coach, he has sort of opened the door slightly for overseas players, hasn't he? Although with caveats.
Exactly. He mentioned considering them, but also stressed the priority is players committed long-term to Rugby Australia, thinking towards the 27 World Cup. So it's not straightforward.
Plus, Skelton's busy with La Rochelle. They're 7th in the top 14, pushing for playoffs.
Right. So his availability, especially for the early part of the tour, could depend entirely on how La Rochelle finished their season. He might only be free after the final round or even the barrages.
That timing could be really tight. The article also brings up Eddie Jones's comments from the World Cup about Skelton being good for Taniela Tupou.
Yeah, apparently waking him up for training. It speaks to Skelton's influence, maybe that leadership quality in the tight five.
Which brings us nicely to Tupou himself. Because his form, well, it's been a talking point.
Definitely. And the article doesn't shy away from it. It mentions him losing his starting spot at the Waratahs and includes those really honest quotes from him.
Yeah, that, do I know how to play rugby anymore? Line is. Well, it's pretty stark, isn't it?
It really is. And him being frank about maybe not deserving a Wallabies spot right now. Plus, the article notes his big contract, the fact he doesn't have a new RA deal yet. That's all got to be swirling around.
It must be. And you need your tight head absolutely focused, right? Especially if the plan involves him syncing up perfectly with guys like Skelton and Alan Alatoa.
100%. That front row cohesion is everything. And if a player's head isn't quite in the game, it affects the whole unit.
Okay, so shifting focus slightly, but still linked. Andrew Porter.
Yeah.
The Lions' loose head. The article spends a lot of time on his technique.
Yeah, this is a really crucial part of the author's argument. It zeroes in on Porter's tendency, or perceived tendency, to scrummage inwards and that low left arm position.
And they point to specific examples, like the World Cup quarterfinal against the All Blacks.
Exactly, where he got penalized a few times. The article even brings in Alex Corbisiero's thoughts.
Oh, interesting. What did he say?
Corbisiero suggested the All Blacks probably went into that game specifically targeting Porter's technique, playing on that history perception around him.
And Mike Ross, the ex-Ireland tight head, he weighed in too.
Yeah, Ross analyzed how New Zealand approached those scrums and why he thought Porter was getting pinged. It adds another layer of technical insight.
And it wasn't just the World Cup, right? There was a Six Nations game too.
Against Wales, yeah. Porter conceded penalties for that low arm again, even when it looked like the Welsh tight head, Will Griff-John, maybe lost his footing, pancaked, as they say.
Right. So it highlights how much relies on the referee's interpretation on the day.
Totally. Which leads to the next point. Could Tupou actually exploit this?
How so?
Well, the article analyses some clips of Tupou playing for the Waratahs against the Force. It shows Tupou also setting up with a bit of an inward angle, and the suggestion is this angle could put immense pressure on a loose head like Porter, especially if Porter uses a shorter bind. They even mention the Taz hooker, Dave Parecki, binding on Tupou first, really accentuating that pressure point.
So the thinking is Tupou could either drive through Porter, pull him down, or just make it look like Porter's infringing because of that low arm and angle.
That's the idea, yeah. If the referee is already looking closely at Porter's angle and bind height, Tupou's approach might just tip the balance in the Wallabies' favor in those 50-50 calls.
It really does circle back to refereeing perception being absolutely key. Just like 2013, but maybe from the other side this time.
Exactly. A subtle shift in how the officials see Porter's scrummaging compared to Tupou's could genuinely swing the momentum in those set pieces. It's fascinating stuff. We'd love to know what you think about this potential scrum dynamic. Jump into the Rugby Obsession community and tell us. And hey, while you're thinking about it, make sure you're subscribed here for more deep dives.
It's amazing how these tiny technical details and perceptions can potentially decide huge moments. The article also dips into some of the fan comments online.
Yeah, and you see the debate playing out there too, don't you? Lots of differing views on Porter, some saying he's been getting away with things, others that he's being unfairly targeted now.
Standard rugby scrum chat then.
Pretty much. There are comments about the Wallabies' speed versus the Lions, some slightly tongue-in-cheek suggestions about social media campaigns targeting Porter.
Oh, like hashtag Scrum Straight Andrew. I saw that.
That's the one. And just general enthusiasm for the focus on the scrum battle itself, plus thoughts on Skelton's impact and availability.
So wrapping it all up, the article paints this picture. It's conditional, relies on a few things falling into place.
Big time. Skelton's availability and impact, Tupou finding form and focus, and crucially, the refereeing interpretations.
But if those dominoes fall, could the Wallabies scrum actually become a point of strength, a real weapon against the Lions this summer?
The article certainly makes you think it's possible, doesn't it? It lays out a plausible, if complex, case for challenging that traditional narrative of Lions scrum power in Australia.
It really does. We'd be keen to hear your perspectives on this. Do you buy the argument? Where do you see the scrum battle going? Head over to the Rugby Obsession community, share your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe just reflecting on it now, listener. If you had to put your money on it today, considering Skelton, Tupou, Porter, the refs, which pack do you think really has the edge heading into this series? Something to ponder.
Definitely something to think about. Well, that's all we have time for on this Rugby Obsession deep dive. Thank you for listening.
We hope you enjoyed it.
And we look forward to you listening to our next episode. Remember to subscribe.